Kevin, I guess my first question, how are you?
I'm all right. Thank you for asking. It's been a very interesting and I think an important couple of weeks where I've had an opportunity to start to be able to talk about things that, well, for me, in some cases, I've never talked about before, and to take accountability for those places where I have behaved badly, and to hopefully put some facts out there that maybe a great majority of the public don't know about.
When were you last in a TV studio like this?
I don't remember, but it's certainly, I think, the first time I've been in a TV studio since 2017.
That's amazing. I mean, at the time you were one of the biggest TV stars in the world, and yet this is 7 years later.
Yeah, and I'm a little
something.
disappointed it's not bigger than this, but it's fine that, you know.
But does it feel strange? I mean, you're suited and booted again, which, you know, you probably haven't been in a studio like this, dressed like this for that length of time. How does it feel?
I suppose the biggest sort of difference that I can feel in myself is that I spent so many years not wanting to talk about myself and avoiding questions about my personal life and my sexuality, and now it's just a very interesting experience that I'm the subject in many of these conversations. I've been fortunate. There's also been conversations about the work that I've done and the work that I hope to do, but it's just been unusual for me to find myself in a place where I am okay with having conversations about things that for a very long time I was so determined and kept people away that I kind of feel like now I have nothing to hide, and I want to live a more open life than the one that I did for a long time.
How close to being broken have you been by the experience of the last 7 years?
There's been a couple of times when it was very dark and when I was at my lowest.
What was the lowest moment for you?
I think probably a few days after this all began, which was in late October.
Well, I can tell you exactly when it was, because I happened to be with you by pure chance on October the 27th, 2017, at the BAFTA Britannia Awards in Los Angeles.
For Dick Van Dyke.
Hosted by Jack Whitehall, an English guy, obviously. And I was in the audience, and you came out to present Dick Van Dyke with an Excellence in Television Award.
Yeah.
Dick in his 90s, obviously.
Yeah.
And you said this, and I only know this because I wrote it in my diary, which was published in the Daily Mail at the time. And you said Dick's mother conceived him out of wedlock, which was scandalous in 1925. Somehow in over 90 years, that's the only scandal Dick's ever been involved in, even passively. And I then added, if the current lurid rumours swirling around Mr. Spacey are true, then very soon the same may not be said of him. And I don't know what those rumours were that I was talking about, but that's what I wrote contemporaneously.
Wow.
And 6 hours after you presented that award to Dick Van Dyke, your world basically caved in with an email informing you that this man, Anthony Rapp, was making allegations that you had made sexual advances to him when he was just 14, more than 30 years before.
Yeah.
And on the Monday, everything blew up.
Yes.
So your world literally turned upside down within hours of me last seeing it.
You're very close, but it was actually, that was on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And the article didn't come out until Sunday morning. We didn't find out until Sunday.
So it's like 36 hours.
In fact, I can tell you what happened in between Friday night and Sunday was that on Saturday afternoon, Ridley Scott showed me the final cut of All the Money in the World.
Really?
Which was the first time I saw it. And
Which you were then later removed from.
I was later removed from, but I was incredibly proud of it. I think Ridley made an extraordinary movie, and I'm obviously very sorry he made the decision he made. But, you know, hey, Chris Plummer is a wonderful actor. He was a friend of mine. But I'm hoping that maybe someday our version of the movie might be able to be seen.
I mean, that was kind of symbolic. You pretty much got airbrushed by Hollywood. They ran for the hills. You were persona non grata. You rushed out a statement at the time, which you've now said, with hindsight, was a bit of a disaster. Probably on multiple levels, not least of which you came out as a gay man in this statement. And you talked about how, well, I'll read a part of it here. You said, I have a lot of respect and admiration for Anthony Rapp as an actor. I'm beyond horrified to hear his story. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago. But if I did behave as he describes, I owe him a sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behaviour. And I'm sorry for the feelings he describes having carried with him all these years. This story has encouraged me to address other things about my life. I know that there are stories out there about me and that some have been fueled by the fact I've been so protective of my privacy. As those closest to me know, in my life I've had relationships with both men and women. I've loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life, and I choose now to live as a gay man. I want to deal with this honestly and openly, and that starts with examining my own behaviour.
There must be reasons why this happened, and I'm trying as best I can in a lot of these cases to seek understanding and not judgment. My best friend in this world and manager, Evan Lowenstein, has worked very hard with me over these years to try to help me get to a place where I come out the other side of this, not bitter, not angry, not revengeful, but more compassionate, having more empathy, more understanding, being more present, and working on myself in all the ways that I have over these last 7 years.
What was going through your head when this all was going down in the first few days? Because you were the double Oscar winner, star of one of the biggest shows on television around the world, House of Cards, and then suddenly, you're talking to Ridley Scott about this big movie. It's everything. Life could not have been going better for you. I'm seeing you in Hollywood, the toast of the town, presenting to one of the all-time greats an award, making a funny speech. Everybody laughed. You were really, pretty much near a peak of your life, I would have thought, and then bang, it's all gone.
And in all honesty, I'm not sure that I was really able to process much of what was happening. Evan recognized immediately that I was in a very, very dark place, and he encouraged me to go take care of myself. So I immediately, really before any of the decisions were made to punish me, I went into rehab. I immediately, I didn't know if I was going to survive, and I just needed to go take care of myself, and I was enormously grateful that Evan encouraged me to go do that.
Do you think what would have happened if you hadn't done that?
I don't know. It was a very unusual experience for me because I'd never been in therapy. I'd never looked into myself in the ways that I was being asked to. I remember there was maybe the first or second day that I was there, one of the guys that had been assigned to me as sort of my angel, my big brother. He looked at me at lunch one day and he said, Kevin, if you're going to get out of this program what you came here to get out of this program, you're probably going to have to do something you've never done in your entire life. And I was like, oh yeah? What would that be? He said, trust before you're ready. And he was right. I had never done that. And so that process of trusting and watching the courage and the strength that these individuals in both that program, I later went to the Hoffman Institute, I did group therapy, to watch individuals step up and share the story of their lives with such openness is what first gave me the courage to start to share my own.
Had you pretty much been leading a life in self-denial to that point?
Well, I don't think I was in denial. I think that I was leading a relatively normal life. I was closeted as a man, and I was fiercely closeted for a very long time. And now that I'm out, regardless of the fact that I came out in a way that was not the best coming out party ever, I would like to try to be as positive a voice for those who are experiencing difficulty in embracing their own selves and their own lives.
You see, already you're getting quite emotional, which is completely understandable, but it shows me that underneath, you've come in, you look back to your old kind of Frank Underwood look in many ways, and yet the scars must be deep. I mean, they must be hard for you. This 7 years you've been through.
Yes, but look, I appreciate that, and as I say, there have been times when it's been challenging, but there's also been times, Piers, have been incredible. I've been able to witness genuine demonstrations of friendship and love. I'm closer to my family. I'm closer to my friends. I'm closer to myself than I've ever been.
Are you a better person?
I absolutely believe I'm a better person.
What have you worked out about yourself? Feels to me like you've gone on a massive journey of self-exploration.
I've learned many things. Some of them had to do with the issues that have arisen. Some of them have had to do with other things, learning about myself, learning about what I was so afraid of. I was just watching Nathan Lane got an award in New York this week from the LGBTQ plus community. I just watched an interview that Ian McKellen had done. And listening to both of them talk about how difficult it was for them. Nathan Lane is this iconic figure who worked in Broadway and a lot of musicals and, had never gotten married. So, people might have made the assumption that he was gay, but he was still, throughout a lot of his professional life, was terrified to say it.
Did that resonate with you?
It resonated with me. I felt for him because I saw myself. And just as Ian McKellen, McKellen was 49 when he came out. So that was like 20, almost 30 years that he was a professional actor. And what they all talk about is that once they did it, for whatever the circumstance was under which they did it, they found, Ian McKellen said that he felt like he was half not telling the truth, even as an actor. Now, for me, theater was an escape because I was never being myself. Theater was this incredible place where I could disappear into or film. I could become a character. So it wasn't about me. It was actually a place to be able to hide. And now I'm so much happier. So what they've said is true. When you come out and you can finally start talking about things you never talked about and embrace who you are, good and bad, So I'm very grateful for the fellowship that I have built through the rehab program, the friends that I've made, the conversations that I've had with individuals I had experiences with, relationships with, and to listen and to understand and to grow and change and to realize that I'm not static.
I'll go my way by myself. This is the end of romance. I'm gonna go my way by myself. Love is only a dance. I'll try to apply myself, teach my heart how to sing. Yeah, you can bet I'll go my way by myself, like a bird on the wing. I'll face the unknown. I'll build a world all my own. There ain't nobody knows better than I myself. I'm by myself alone. When you're alone, who cares for starlit skies? When you're alone, magic moonlight dies at break of dawn. There is no sunrise when your lover has gone. What lonely hours all evening shadows bring. Such lonely, lonely hours with memories lingering, just like faded flowers. Life will never mean anything when your lover has gone. Work it out! I'll face the unknown. I might even go out and make me a world. Oh, my own. There ain't nobody, not in this room, no time, never, knows better than I myself. I'm by myself alone.
Let's just talk about the criminal trial you faced. You won that civil case, emphatically. You also won the criminal case. You were found again not guilty. You know, when you mention Kevin Spacey's name, if they haven't seen any of the recent interviews you've done, you could be forgiven from a lot of the coverage about you in thinking that you must have been convicted. You know, you're not working. Your acting career's been frozen for 7 years. And yet you were found not guilty in a criminal court, and you were found not guilty in a civil court as well. Why have you been so emphatically cancelled, do you think?
There are no adults in the room to some degree. I mean, look, I'm grateful to you and people like you who have, I'm not going to say you've supported me, but you definitely have supported the idea that has surrounded me of I wasn't offered a due process in sort of the public arena.
Well, you weren't. There's no question. You were found guilty by the court of public opinion, which happens so often to people in all different ways, some trivial, some serious. But I also believe just in fairness. You know, you were taken through the court process in a criminal trial and a civil trial, and you were found not guilty. And when that happens to people, a sort of ongoing prosecution, because people just want to nail you, strikes me as not very fair.
Well, I think that we have experienced this before in our history, and certainly my industry has experienced it before. And even though they promised they would never allow that to happen again, I'm talking now specifically about the blacklist, which was, you know, a lot of people talk about the Hollywood 10 and Dalton Trumbo, and we know about those people, but there were more than 479 people whose lives were largely destroyed by being accused of being communists. And the media was a partner in that. I mean, you go and, you know, there's an incredible book about Charlie Chaplin called Charlie Chaplin versus the United States of America. And it is extraordinary. The number of columnists who were talking to the FBI, talking to Hoover, and then writing stories about people who, I mean, Lee Grant couldn't get a job for 12 years because she wouldn't testify against her husband in front of the House on Activities Committee on American. And so we've seen this before, and I think that I'm not an expert in this, but what I've observed is that there is a lot of fear. People are afraid for their own careers and their own positions if they stand in solidarity with somebody who has been found not guilty. And I hope that as time goes on, that will begin to shift in the right direction.
On the criminal trial, you were charged with 9 sexual offences against 4 men between 2004 and 2013. And you were found not guilty on all counts. Now, a criminal trial is, by definition, a lot more serious than a civil case. Civil case, the bar can be a lot lower for guilt. And you, again, you'll be found not guilty there. When you're facing a criminal trial of that magnitude, had you been found guilty on all counts, I mean, you would likely have gone to prison for a considerable period of time.
I believe so, yes.
Did that thought play on your mind a lot? I mean, how does that feel? You're an Oscar-winning actor, and suddenly you're facing a trial where someone may take your liberty away for years.
Only if we'd had a crazy jury. Only if people hadn't actually listened and taken the time to weigh the evidence that we presented in our defense would that have ever been possible. But we were very, very fortunate. I had an incredible team. Evan was a part of that team, even though he's not a lawyer. But what we were able to present as facts, there was really, I mean, look, the day it happens, I mean, the actual day where they're gonna come in and tell you what the verdicts are. Yeah, you're definitely, I was definitely like, you know, what if this doesn't go the way I hope? But as each count was read, and as each time the juror said, not guilty, I knew that we had presented the right case, and I knew that we had the evidence to prove I was not guilty of those things that I was accused of.
Elton John and his husband David Furnish both gave witness statements, Elton by video from his home in the south of France. What did that mean to you, to have people of his stature step up for you?
You've actually just reminded me that Elton was the first email I got on October 30th of 2017, after the rap story had come out, saying, we love you, whatever you need, we're here for you. And Elton has been there, and David had been there ever since.
Cold
It's an old cliche that you find out who your friends are when the chips are down, but you really have, haven't you?
Yes, but I also don't catastrophize about the people that I haven't heard from yet. Because, yeah, there are some people who definitely ran into the forest. But there are other people that have, it took 6 months, it took a year, it took maybe 2 years, it took, we're 7 years. I'm still hearing from people that I hadn't heard from. And I try not to decide what that means. Some people just don't know what to say. They don't know how to approach you. They're not sure you want to be approached. And so I continually find myself being very moved by people who take the time and to reach out and to find out how I'm doing.
After the initial allegations from Anthony Rapp, more than 50 other allegations came out in varying degrees of sexual misconduct. Like I say, you've never been convicted of any offences. When you look at the totality of all these people coming up to say, well, he did this to me, he did this to me, he groped me here, he tried to kiss me here, all that kind of stuff. I've read that you've reached out to some of these people and had good conversations with them and kind of put these things to some form of closure. Is that right?
It is right that I have reached out to my friends who I had relationships with or encounters with. There are a whole lot of people that have made claims that I have not reached out to. And the reason for that is that I do not feel that I need to have a conversation with somebody who has completely reimagined an experience or have made it up. I'm absolutely 150% prepared to take accountability for those things that I did and the mistakes that I made. Bad behavior sometimes.
See, what I was told, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know you, we've met a few times, but I don't know you at all. But what I was told by people who do know you is that in your thespian days in the theatre world, you'd put on a play, you'd all go out, you'd all have a few drinks, you're very flirtatious, and you would be quite suggestive with people, and a lot of them didn't mind that at all. And some people, maybe with revisionist hindsight, maybe not, did mind it, but that you were pretty indiscriminate in your kind of borderline, maybe crossing the borderline, inappropriate behaviour. Would you admit to that?
Yes.
I'm not talking about anything criminal.
Absolutely.
I'm just talking
Yes.
about general kind of inappropriate behaviour.
Absolutely true.
You recognise that characterisation?
I absolutely do. And it's important for me to recognize that. It's been important for me to understand that. It's been important for me to hear and listen to someone else's perspective, why they didn't feel they could say something to me at the time. It's very, very important. We are theater rats. We become families. When you come every day, it's not like a movie, where you may have a scene with somebody on one day, then another scene another day. When you're doing a play, you're coming every single day, whole company. And I've been so fortunate to have been a part of families that were being led by people like Jack Lemmon, and families that I led when I was in a position. And it's an incredibly, it's very moving and it's very important. And I've tried in the workspace to not cross the line, because it's always risky if you find yourself attracted to somebody you're working with.
I've seen you say repeatedly, and I don't doubt this for a moment, that you believed in yourself, that there was never any kind of quid pro quo thing, that you didn't say to people, if you sleep with me, I'll help you get this job. But what your critics would say is, well, maybe not, but you're Kevin Spacey. And if you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old young male actor, and Kevin Spacey is fluttering his drunken eyelashes at you, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, that was very nice. I like that.
In a way that in itself can constitute an abuse of power, even if you don't intend it to. That there is a presumption from the young actor in that position that a more powerful man, a famous man, a double Oscar winner, is using all that to seduce someone. Do you accept that?
I can understand that perspective. I truly can. But at the same time, I'm a human being. And if I fall in love with somebody across a room, then am I not supposed to go and have a conversation with them or see if they're interested because I'm famous?
When you yourself, as you did a few minutes ago, you talk about bad behaviour that you committed. What do you mean by that? What's your idea of bad behaviour when you look back at what you were doing?
Pushing the boundaries.
In what way? I mean,
being too handsy, touching someone sexually.
Groping people.
In a way that I didn't know at the time they didn't want. Yeah.
Some people would say that is criminal. That if you grope people in a sexual way against their wishes, that is a crime.
I agree that the word grope is a very odd word. I personally, I have caressed people. I have been gentle with people. That is the way that I am. You're making a pass at someone. You don't want to be aggressive. You want to be gentle. You want to see if they're going to respond positively. So I think the word itself is not a word that I associate with my experience.
But would you say all of that was consensual, or was it an attempt at seduction that, if it was repelled, by definition becomes, I guess, non-consensual? That if you're being handsy, if you're groping people, and they don't want to do it,
then they should let you know they don't want to do it, so that you can understand it's non-consensual and stop.
So that brings me back to the point I made about if they're a young male actor, and it's Kevin Spacey, and he's had a few drinks, and they're in the bar late at night, and he gropes a young male actor, and they may feel they don't want to be part of that. They don't like what's going on, but they don't want to tell you because you're Kevin Spacey, and it might damage their career. Do you understand how people could think that if they were young and impressionable and keen to get on in their careers? When you reflect on those moments.
Yes. And again, recognizing that, understanding that, and making a vow that will never happen again for the rest of my life. I will never behave in the ways that I did previously, ever.
Romance is a game for fools, I used to say. A game I thought I'd never play. Romance is a game for fools, I said and grinned. Then you passed by, and here am I, throwing caution to the wind. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread, and so I come to you, my love, my heart above my head. Though I see the danger there, if there's a chance for me, then I don't care. Fools rush in where wise men never go, but wise men never fall in love. So how are they to know when we met? I felt my life begin, so open up your heart
How hard has that made it for you to get a relationship?
It's a good question.
Are you in one now?
I'm not in one now.
Have you had any lasting one throughout this process?
Yes.
So it's been possible?
Yes, I
Because
think
it must be incredibly difficult on two levels. One, you're Kevin Spacey with all these headlines and court cases and so on, which must be a deterrent to a lot of people. But secondly, you must be hesitant in yourself about making a move with anyone.
Well, if I've learned anything, I've learned that a first move doesn't have to be physical. And so there are ways to make a first move and find out if someone is interested or not. But I also believe that many people, they judge another human being from what they experience. And so I am hopeful, and I believe that I will be able to meet someone who is willing to judge me for what they experience.
Could you trust
not
someone?
From headlines.
Could you trust someone enough, do you think?
I absolutely believe I can. I don't want to go through my life thinking everyone's out to get me. I mean, that would be a terrible way to live.
You'd like to fall in love and
Yeah.
maybe get married? Is that an aspiration?
I think being in a relationship, let me start there. Being in a relationship, don't get me married right away. Being in a relationship would be incredible, because the thing that I think I know now, even though I knew it before, is that not being in a relationship just means that you don't have an opportunity to share what you're going through and the changes that you're making and how your life is evolving with another person. And when I've been in relationships, the thing that I always have loved the most is that I think for two instead of for one.
I was very struck recently by public statements of support for you from a number of public figures, but several that I know. Liam Neeson, I know a bit. Sharon Stone, I know better. Liam Neeson told the Telegraph, "Kevin's a good man, a man of character." He said that Spacey's one of our finest artists in the theatre and on camera. Personally speaking, our industry needs him and misses him greatly. And Sharon Stone said, "I can't wait to see Kevin back at work. He's a genius. He's so elegant and fun, generous to a fault. He knows more about our craft than most of us ever will."
And I'm enormously grateful.
Not easy for people of that stature to stick their head over the parapet and take the flak, which you inevitably...
Well, first of all, they didn't get any flack. They really didn't.
No, I know.
And second of all, I'm enormously grateful to them. And I just have to say, I know I mentioned them a couple of times, but I hope you're understanding why I am. That as happy as I am for these individuals who've stood up so recently, there's been one person standing up from the very beginning, and that's Evan Lowens too. And I would not be here without him.
You really feel that?
Absolutely. I owe him everything.
You think you would have taken your life?
I want to live. I do want to live. But there were times when I wasn't sure if I would make it.
You have, you've been pretty honest about the inappropriate, bad behaviours, you put it, the groping, which many times would have been unwanted and was rejected, and people will make a judgment about you about those admissions. I don't think you're trying to portray yourself as some angelic character.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is that I absolutely can have sympathy with you for what I see as an overreach by the media, where they haven't got the whole story, and perhaps if they had, they would have done these things a different way. And I can also see that by your own admission, your behaviour was extremely inappropriate, and some people would view it as more serious than that. I think that's my kind of overview of your behaviour through that period. That, these things may not have been true, but other times you did stuff you wish you hadn't done, and it was non-consensual and shouldn't have happened. And times have maybe changed pretty dramatically now, where maybe you wouldn't behave like that.
Well, regardless of the times, I'm not going to behave that way. And I would, now we're at a place where, okay, what next? I mean, I'm trying to seek a path of redemption. I'm trying to find a way to return to what I love doing, which is to be a full-time working actor. And
have you had any calls? You getting calls?
Yes. I think that what we've been able to see, Evan and I have watched, because he gets all these, offers that come in, is that now directors, fellow actors, producers, financiers are so excited to work with me, are so pleased to offer me something. And then we get into the exhibition part of it, and the streaming services, or the studios, or the distributors. And what we tend to see is that everyone's on board, and then one person, some executive somewhere says, oh, our audience, a lot of our audience is going to be upset if we buy this movie. And I would only ask, who are you speaking for? Because I don't think that, I would like to think that the people that stop me on the street and have stopped me for the last 7 years have been so generous and so wanting to know when I'm going to get back to work, that I think that these executives are attempting to speak for all of the British public or all of the American public. And I think that, I hope that that begins to subside, because I do believe that the majority of people would like me to get back to work.
The person I'm told has been very supportive to you in the royal family is actually the King, when he was Prince Charles. Is that true?
That is true. We were very fortunate that when he was the Prince of Wales, he loved the Old Vic, he believed in it. His grandmother had been the patron there for many years. He came to see our productions. And I was always honored to be able to do what I could for the Prince's Trust. And I wish him all the best with his health.
You're still facing some legal jeopardy. One of the people in the criminal case is taking a civil action against you. It does feel like it's never ending, this. Does it feel like that for you?
There are some days where you're just like, what? But I truly believe that we are rounding a corner.
What do people say to you when they see you in the street?
It moves me so much. that people take the time to ask me how I am. They talk about movies. They talk about characters. That's when I feel like, wow, I did my job in that one, because they're talking about that person as if that person is real. They're using that character's name, not me. And people have expressed such concern and hope, and they just want me to get back to work. And I'm with them on that. What I hope for is that I have the opportunity to continue to tell stories, because that's what I feel I was put on this earth to do, was to tell stories. And if I'm lucky enough to have collaborators who are inspiring and excited to work with me and come together, and we put all of this in the past, and I'm able to come on a film set and make sure that everyone's having a good time, make sure that people are getting what they need to do the best work that they can, and that I'm a part of making sure that everyone is treated right. And I've learned from my own mistakes. That will be a very good day. I'm grateful that people are talking to me. I'm grateful that they're sharing what they're sharing with me. I'm learning, I'm growing. And you know what? About the work, it never stops. I will be doing this work for the rest of my life.
You mean on yourself?
On myself. This is not something you go off and you get a diploma and then you come back and say, look at me, I did all the work.
I mean, what's it's not funny because of the circumstances, but what's kind of ironic is that you were famously a very private guy. You said that at the start. You know, if I'd interviewed you 15 years ago, we would not have been going anywhere near any of this stuff.
We also would have been 10 minutes.
Right. No, but that literally, I mean, you would not have subjected yourself to such a forensic conversation about you, your character, your life, your mistakes, and so on. Is it quite cathartic to be doing it? How do you feel about it, the conversation? Honestly.
It's like a weight is lifted off my shoulders. Because I'm okay to talk about these things. And I wasn't for a very, very long time. And I don't want to miss out on things that I missed out on before. As I said, now I want to focus on the things that happen off screen and off stage, much more than I focused on them in the past. And I'm blessed to have people around me who believe in me. And I'm blessed to have been able to learn what I've been able to learn. Can you imagine if I didn't learn anything? If it was 7 years, then I learned nothing? I wouldn't want to be alive if that were true. But I very, very, very much am so grateful that I am alive and I got through this. And I'm coming out the other side of it.
Gather round me, everybody. Gather round me while I preach some. Feel a sermon coming on me. The topic will be sin, and that's what I'm again. If you want to hear my story, then settle back and just sit tight while I start reviewing the attitude of doing right. You got accent, accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative and latch on to the affirmative and don't mess with Mr. In between. You gotta spread joy up to the maximum and bring bloom down to the minimum. Have faith or pandemonium liable to walk upon the scene. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the whale, Noah in the ark. What did they do just when everything looks so dark? Man, they said we better accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative and latch on to the affirmative and don't mess with Mr. In between.
It must have been a nightmare to live through it. And I don't say that because I think you've been completely blameless. We've discussed by your own admission the flaws that led to your behaviour and so on. But I do believe in fairness, and I just think that you've not been convicted of any crimes, either in a criminal court or a civilian court. And at some point, society has to recognise that. They may have their own view about you, good, bad or ugly, but there has to be a sense of fairness about it. And the fact that you're now losing your home and you have no money and you owe millions and so on, and I suspect they'll reach the same conclusion I am, this is too much.
There's a wonderful story that is about one of the Hollywood 10, and that was that Dalton Trumbo was rejected, as everyone was, by the unions, by the motion picture producers, by the Directors Guild, by the Writers Guild, everybody. And he had to work for many, many years writing under a pseudonym. It's the only way he could work, was to use a different name. So he didn't get the credit on a movie that he actually wrote. Some other invented person got that credit. He got paid. And then one year, a remarkable man in my business, who was an icon and a producer and a movie star, stood up and said, "Enough is enough." And Kirk Douglas said, "Dalton Trumbo's name is going on Spartacus." And everyone told him he'd get canceled. Everyone told him, "Don't do it. You're going to be called a commie lover." And he says, "Sometimes you have to do the right thing on principle." And the moment he stood up and said, "Enough is enough," the blacklist was over. And Dalton Trumbo's name is on Spartacus.
Are you waiting for that person to do that for you?
I don't believe, and never will believe, that the world doesn't have more Kirk Douglases. But what an example. And he said at 98, when he was reflecting, he said, what I do know is that history repeats itself. And we should never, ever allow that to happen again.
Kevin, it's been good to talk to you.
Thank you very much for having me. I very much appreciate it.
It's been a fascinating conversation. Obviously, these are difficult conversations for you, but I do sense they're cathartic for you. There's got to be a sense of fairness about this eventually. I think most people will conclude you've suffered more than someone in your position should. You're not a convicted criminal, and you're being treated as almost one of the worst criminals the Hollywood's ever seen. And it seems to me crazy.
I thank you for that very much.
Good to see you. Thank you. And best of luck.
Thank you.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea, she's there watching for me. If I could fly like birds on a high, then straight to her arms I'd go sailing. It is far beyond the stars, it is near beyond the moon. And I know beyond a doubt my heart will lead me there. Soon we'll meet beyond the shore. We'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. My heart will lead me there. Soon we'll meet, I know we'll meet beyond the shore. We're gonna kiss just as before, and happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. No more sailing. So long sailing, bye-bye sailing, no more aqua.